EVP with Aimbridge. Hey, Anthony Melchiori, beautiful day. Look at that. Beautiful day out here in my fake studio.
It's always a beautiful day in the neighborhood when Glenn's around.
Yes, it is. And as a matter of fact, I put on sneakers when I come at home because I love Mr. Rogers.
I'm Anthony. Welcome to No Vacancy Live. That's my friend Glenn.
You're watching the #1 show in hospitality. My goodness gracious, Anthony Melchiori, I've got spring/summer fever, I got to tell you. It's only Wednesday, but it feels like it should already be Friday. I don't know what's going on with that. How you doing?
I think we do a new intro when we go to Vegas in June.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I love it.
Yeah, I'll talk to Tamara.
All right.
So I have to ask you a question, Glenn.
Yes, sir.
And I wanted to ask you off camera, but I'm going to ask you today.
Oh.
How are you, Glenn?
Aw, thanks for asking. How are you? I'm fine, man. I mean, I feel like this week is like 2 weeks long, getting to the holiday weekend. My kids are off the next 2 days from school and everybody is excited and I've got to keep working. So, it's a pretty typical week around here.
So where are you not at today?
All right, check this out.
Oh, what?
Yeah, that's actually on a real beach in Dubai. How cool is that? Our friends in the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, did that for us. One of the hotels. Of course, you got to get the book, The Adapters, at Amazon.com. Check it out.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Who did that?
Yeah, that's real. One of Sean, the author Sean Worker, who you guys saw him on the show the other day. Some people at a major hotel in Dubai, so they did that for us on their beach.
That's very sweet. I really, really like that. And we give him Sean more airtime, even though he yelled at me yesterday. But okay.
Well, he's not here now, so you can get right back at him, and he can't defend himself. So, hey, we like to set it up easy for you, Anthony.
Hey, dude, 90% of the economy is back. Hotels are opening. New York City seems to come back. Everybody I know is complaining about airfares and hotel rates. Exactly where I want people to be.
Exactly, and we're going to be talking about all that fun stuff. So I just want to give our friends a little shout out over at Eco Tech and the Tellurian baskets over there. Little bonus for them. I'm giving them a little shout out today because these things are just so great. Remember, events are coming back and people are booking. You saw Stephanie Glanzer on Monday. She's talking about how they're going to be so busy for 2022 over at MGM Resorts in Vegas. You guys want to make sure that you have these waste paper baskets in place right now for when people come back, right, Anthony?
Well, I think, I'll explain to people why those baskets actually came into existence. Do you want to explain? Or do you want me to explain?
Oh, go for it, man. I love it.
When you're in a convention hall, it costs a lot of money to hire labor to go and empty out the trash bag. And then you have to clean the trash bins. Then you have to take out the plastic, put a new plastic bag. It's a lot easier to put in one of these receptacles and then put a new one in and take the old one out. Easier. It's more affordable, and that's where they came from. That's why they were invented. They were invented for conventions. I don't know if I explained that perfectly well, but you get the drift.
I think it's absolutely great. Go check them out at eco-techwaste.com. The Tellurian baskets. You got a starter pack in either black or white. Your choice, whatever you want, whatever you're feeling. And tell them No Vacancy sent you and get 10% off. Anthony, so today I'm excited for the show because we are featuring Rob Smith, and he's an EVP over at Aimbridge Hospitality. Now, you might know them as the world's largest third-party management company. So this is going to be a great, great conversation, just getting to what you're talking about.
No,
right?
I was just saying, Aimbridge, aren't they a little company? They have like 2 hotels or something? They have like 6,000 hotels or something?
Let's bring on Rob Smith to immediately correct you over there. So he's the EVP of operations at Aimbridge Hospitality. Now, Aimbridge has got, what do you got? Something like 1,400 hotels, but you're in charge of the luxury and resorts division and full service. You've got over 300 in that area alone, right?
Yeah, the company has about close to 1,600 hotels, but who's counting? But yeah, we have a little over 300 in the full service luxury and resort division that I'm involved with.
That's excellent.
Hey, Rob, can you do me a favor? Wherever your microphone is, can you get it a little bit closer to you? We're having a little.
We were trying to pump it up on my side a little bit before. So
and
sorry.
try to.
Can you hear me better now, Anthony?
Yeah.
A little bit. If you can center yourself a little bit, that'd even be better.
Well, we don't want to miss out on that incredible view at Frenchman's Reef in St.
There you go. There's that pretty face.
Awesome. Yeah, I tried to take advantage of location and give you guys a real view behind me instead of a computer screen view.
So Rob Smith, okay, why are you in this beautiful location? Is it vacation or is it just it's part of your job?
It's part of my job, Anthony. This beautiful property here in St. Thomas in 2017 was hit by back-to-back horrific hurricanes, and besides that, of course, we've had COVID in the last year, so the property's been shut down, and we just started back up full-scale construction. We got 150 people on site today, and it's exciting to get this property ready to reopen.
Oh, that's great. And so how often, just, before we talk about hotels, if people want your job, right? You look like you have a cool job. How many, in a normal year, 2019, how many days were you on the road?
I'm on the road every week, 2 to 3 nights. Occasionally I'll have a week in the office, but pretty rare. Even during the COVID period, I've been traveling since August, at least 2 weeks out of the month.
So we're going to ask riveting questions on this show. What is your go-to snack on the road?
My go-to snack on the road. I'm a real big burrito guy. Anything you can put in it. Breakfast, it's eggs. Lunch, it's steak.
Right.
Dinner, it's whatever there is. So anything I can eat quickly with my hands.
And what's your go-to drink on the road? Alcoholic or non-alcoholic?
It is alcoholic for sure. I'm a light beer and Cabernet guy. So
okay, now that we got that out of the way, let's ask you easy questions.
Wait, hold on. I can't imagine that the conversation could be any more fascinating than hot burrito talk over there. But Rob, how are you feeling today with the state of affairs and how far we've come so far?
I got to tell you, Glenn, I feel a lot better today than I did even 90 days ago.
Yeah.
For the last 13 weeks, our company, 1,500 hotels strong, has been hovering just above 60%, which 2 years ago would have been a disaster, but today it's a wonderful thing, knowing that this time last year we were shut down, and through most of the summer, most properties were running in the 20 and 30% range. So, and more importantly, hotels like this, our resort and leisure properties, are really going through a boom. I was in Puerto Rico last week, and our property was sold out, and to see the activity was just really felt great.
So, owner calls are a lot easier the last few days, huh?
Well, the owners have been through a really tough year and a half. I don't have to tell anybody that. And we're not out of the woods yet, but it's nice to see that demand is returning. And that I personally think we're going to see a boom here. I don't think group and business transient are going to come back immediately, but transient leisure business is on a boom. People want to get out of their house, and they're tired of being at home.
So in your position, right, you have the ownership that's trying to make up for a year and a half of loss. You have the brands that are basically doing a lot more with less, and you're not seeing those executives come back. A lot of my friends didn't get their jobs back, and they're not getting them back. It's just the way it's going to go. And they're going to probably cut their staff. I don't want to give a percentage, but the brands are going to cut their staff significantly, in my opinion, at least what I'm seeing. So what is your job in the next 12 to 18 months? You're right in the middle. I mean, you've got to operate a property, and you got owners that really want a return on their investment, a bigger return on their investment because of a year and a half. They want to keep their expenses low. And you got brands that aren't going to give you the same support. So is that a good benefit for a company like yours, or is it just make it more difficult?
Anthony, it's a good point that you're making. And Aimbridge made a conscious decision last March or April not to cut any of our operational positions. So we went through COVID at 100% staffing. We all took voluntary pay cuts so that we would be there for the hotels, because we knew that there was going to be limited resources across the board. The brands have been real flexible with us as far as how we operate and how we got through this time period. But it's been a plus for Aimbridge, because since we've been there, since we've been in the field and never stopped traveling, we've picked up a couple hundred hotels during the pandemic period, and our pipeline is strong. So I think ultimately you want to see a silver lining in every experience, and I think that's what it's going to be for Aimbridge.
But what is in the next 12 to 18 months, how's your job shifting specifically because of these changes? Your job, your role specifically.
Yeah, my role specifically, during the time period, we didn't want to put the burden on the property. So my travel was not about going to check an operation or to see how a property is doing. It was more about supporting the field, and it was owner-centric travel. And a lot of our visits became virtual. We're trying to break through those now. One of the issues that happened during COVID is a lot of owners use funds that were set aside for capital refurbishment to get through this process. So now we're negotiating with the brands and helping work through property improvement schedules so that we make sure that as business returns, we give these owners a chance to recover before we get into that next stage, which is bringing the properties through the PIP process.
And have the brands been basically, have they been open to it?
So far, they've been fantastic. They themselves went through financial times.
Right.
This wasn't just about the hotel owners. So I think because the pain was shared, they've been great about it.
And that's and Glenn, I'm sorry I'm dominating this, but I find this interesting because what you just said is something a lot of our younger generation and people that don't have your experience don't understand. That really that focus of capital and how we use that capital in the next 12 to 18 months is going to be critical without losing the guest experience. And your job has got to make sure you're not spending all that capital because the owners need it, however, or used it. However, you still got to give that guest that experience because in a lot of destinations, rates are going to be even more expensive than they were in 2019.
Yeah, I tell you another silver lining, Anthony, is so many folks have been out of work in our industry, and they're so excited to be back, and more importantly, they're excited to see guests in the hotel, and that creates a whole level of hospitality that when you're busy all the time, sometimes you forget how special that guest is. So a lot of the lack of capital is being made up the old-fashioned way with just great customer service.
Yeah, and that's absolutely essential to do that. Now, I'm curious as to if you're in a situation where you have a have and have not situation when it comes to full service and luxury. It seems to me that your resort property is doing really good. Do you have any urban core cities, and what's their prospect right now for bringing back to life their full service hotels?
Yeah, Glenn, they're going to be the last to come back. There's no doubt about it. People go into those urban areas. There has to be demand drivers as restaurants and theaters and things in those areas that create demand come back. We'll see weekend demand come back first. Everybody is waiting to see business transient come back. What I try to tell folks is that if you're business transient and you've learned a way to do your job virtually, that's not going to last for long because your competitors are going to go out and they're going to start calling on your clients, and you're going to be forced to get back on the road. Not to mention, I was talking to one of our business transient guests 2 weeks ago in Minneapolis, and he said, I can't wait to get back on the road because it's fun. But you don't want to tell people, especially at home, that midweek business travel is fun, but you have a good time. You get to see clients, you go out to dinner. There's a lot of things that you can't do over a computer screen.
Right, Rob, my strategy has been to constantly complain when I'm on the road about how horrible things are.
We all do, Glenn. We don't say that it's tough, but secretly we know it's not.
Right.
I always find travel very easy. If you get everywhere early, I find it much easier. Where I was getting stressed out early in my career when I was just getting to places on time, I build in tremendous amount of time. Matter of fact, my daughter went to Florida this morning with her friends. She graduated college, and I had her at the airport 2 hours and 20 minutes early. Wow. And I know what she was thinking. She's like, what the hell am I doing here?
No, I agree 100%. The key in my role, in my job, is learning that everywhere is your office. So that way you don't have to rush to get anywhere, because if you get there early, it's just an opportunity to set up camp, just like I'm doing right here.
Yeah. And I love it. Not only do you get to be here with us on the show today, but you also get to make us feel bad about not being in St. Thomas. A real win-win, Rob. Yep. I love that.
So where is St. Thomas right now after the hurricane 2017? Like if I came to St. Thomas on vacation right now, what does it feel like?
Well, I'll tell you, the island was pretty smart in the fact that they took the opportunity to reinvest in downtown. From the airport to our property, it's completely been redone. Wow. They have a whole pedestrian center, and they've planted new palm trees, and they've kept their people working on infrastructure, which was a wise thing to do. There's only a handful of properties open right now, really more because of the hurricanes in 17 than because of COVID. But everybody took a pause for this last year, so everybody now is getting back to work. But my plane was full, and that's always a great sign.
Oh my goodness. Particularly when you're talking about an island destination to be able to pull that off. There's not necessarily a lot of traffic going to them compared to, some of the big cities traditionally. So Rob, is Frenchman's Reef reopened yet? What is the plan over there?
No, I mean, we're going through a staggering number, $260 million rebuild here. So we're not going to be open for probably 16 months. But when it reopens, it's going to be fantastic. We're really, it's almost like a new build property.
So how much did you say? How much did you say?
$260 million.
Well, so what are you doing in order to protect from the elements? So if there is another hurricane, that $260 million, maybe, what are you doing to make sure that the structure is in better shape than it was in 2017?
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons. This building was originally built in the 90s. So they're taking the opportunity to go down to the studs and rebuild, Category 5 hurricane on everything. All the windows are being replaced. Some of the structural areas are being reinforced. And that's one of the reasons. It's not all just about returning the property to the beauty, but making sure that next time around, we don't have to go back through this again.
And who's the owner of the property?
It's currently owned by Fortress, an investment firm.
Right. I'm not familiar with those guys, but obviously you're super familiar with them, and kudos to them for putting in such a significant investment in it. Did they just want to do that on their own, or were they encouraged along because the government is making such moves with rebuilding and getting that airport and stuff going? They felt it would be a worthwhile investment.
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, they realize, this is by far the largest property. It's in a fantastic location in St. Thomas. We have a whole cove peninsula area to the property. It's, I don't even know, 50, 60 acres of land. So they really saw this as an opportunity pre-rebound to get it right and to, relaunch it in the upper upscale luxury segment.
Right. So how are you, just speaking about in general and stuff like that with all of the luxury resorts that you have out there where, we already said right now there's a lot of pent up demand. We've been talking about people wanting to travel and stuff over the summer. Are you seeing those numbers really play out in real time in your hotels this summer? And do you think that's going to be enough to get you over the hump past Labor Day when we've been saying here on No Vacancy Live, that's when we think business travel is actually going to start to come back? And you would have said initially that it would come back later on, but when do you think that'll be as well?
Yeah, Glenn, believe it or not, last year in the summer, May, June, July, August, we saw a spike in weekend and shoulder demand.
Right.
That was leisure driven. People wanted to get out of their house. They either wanted to do work or school from home, and they wanted to have a weekend. So we think that this summer should be that, times a big number. So
right.
We're already seeing it. Even in our urban hotels, we're selling out most weekends now, and trying to string in the shoulder nights. We're not seeing midweek yet. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday just hasn't come back.
But you can convince people to come Friday, stay till Monday, that sort of a thing right now. Yes.
Yeah, and if they stay for the weekend, and we have in all of our hotels, we have stay rates that are encouraging them to go ahead and work from the hotel for Monday, Tuesday, because they don't have to be back to an office or, finish school. So, I'm very encouraged with the summer numbers. The advanced bookings are really on fire, not just in our resorts, but in our full service properties as well, from transient leisure business.
So let me ask you a question that is kind of, we're going on another train of thought for a second. Do you see a lot of consolidation or a few more major brands kind of buying smaller brands? I'm starting to smell a couple of transactions, and you now have how many properties? 16. How many did you say? Okay. So are you,
we have over 1,500.
So are you looking to acquire more management companies that haven't been able to get through this year and a half?
I can't say that we are purposefully looking for that. I think it will be a natural part of the process as we get out of COVID. There were a lot of backstops during the pandemic, either forbearance on financial arrangements or PPP loans. And I think once all those things go away, we'll see how the industry survives and what properties make it through and what companies make it through. I certainly think we'll see additional consolidation. It was going down that road
Right.
before COVID, and I think that this will speed that up a little bit, probably closer to the end of the third quarter, fourth quarter, when people see what their real financial outlooks are going to be.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys are something like 3 or 4 times bigger than your next competitor out there, and I'm seeing a lot of this business go to a lot of smaller operators, but once you get to a certain size, it seems like they are unable to continue growing, or you guys wind up buying them.
Yeah. And not to boast, but we're actually about 10 times larger than
10 times. Sorry, my apologies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not that, not that that's everything, but we, we're focused on just making sure that we take care of our owner and take care of our guest. And we think growth will come naturally, either through organic growth one at a time or through M&A, like you're mentioning.
And right now, are you looking for general managers?
Through this process, Anthony, our GMs, my hat is off to our executive committees, because a lot of these properties got scaled down, to 10, 12, 15 people. And they've been doing all kinds of things to keep the lights on and make sure that our hotels are open for our guests. We did not have a lot of attrition in the management ranks. We are looking for hourly people. I think everybody knows throughout the U.S. and in the Caribbean, it's difficult to get people, housekeepers, room attendants, frontline food and beverage people back to work. So we are aggressively recruiting in those areas.
Well, I asked that question because I'm trying to get Glenn a job. Do you think you can get him a job maybe in housekeeping front office, and then potentially he may be able to be promoted to assistant general manager?
I can tell you, Glenn has a hospitality personality. I see it right in his in a way he approaches the show.
Yeah, thank you.
I will tell you, wait. I will tell you, there's 2 types of front office managers, okay? The front office manager that handles the guest really well, goes in the back office, takes a little bit of a breath, goes back out, and continues to handle the guest who's upset in a really gracious way.
Yep.
Glenn is the one that handles it really well, then goes in the back, and then goes get somebody. Go, can you go handle that idiot at the front desk? So if you're saying he's prepared, then that's the kind of assistant manager you're getting.
Rob, if you're looking
I guess
for a manager who
right now
delegates.
he's handling a nice guy. It's how they handle the heated situation. I didn't see that.
Right. Oh, it's going to get heated here, Rob. So let me turn up the heat a little bit, just a little bit over there. How are you guys so effective at bringing success to your owners when you in your division have 300 hotels? How do you manage it all? How are you able to make sure owners don't fall through the cracks?
Well, one of the benefits of scale with Aimbridge is people want to work for us. And people often ask me what the most important part of my job is. And I never hesitate. The most important part of my job is making sure we have the right general manager in the hotel, because I can't fly in and manage the hotel and fly out. We have to have fantastic people, world-class people operating our properties. And when they're doing it, our jobs are easy. And when they're not, we need to find someone else that will. So, when I joined Aimbridge, we had 63 properties. It was a little more difficult to attract world-class talent. But, now we've got a full talent pool to deploy. And that really is the secret to our success.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more, and I have to underline that 17 times, because people always talk about brands and ownership and locations. Give me a hotel, give me a good general manager, and get out of their way, period. Yep. And the general manager will tell you 1 of 2 things. Hey, you bought this hotel and I'm making money for you, or you know what, you gotta sell this hotel because I can't even make money for you on this hotel. And that's what you want. And when you have a good general manager, when you trust a general manager, you take that advice and you're like, hey, I believe you, because every single time I ask you a question, you have 3 answers for me. And that's so valuable. And I think that escapes when you look at Aimbridge and all the big management companies. People look at these big companies and they're like, wow, look at them. No, just look at the general managers. The general manager keeping that company afloat. And so thank you for bringing that to the forefront.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as our company, one of the great things about what I do is I get to fly around and see a bunch of hotels and take all the best practices and bring those back into our properties. But it's the general managers that have to manage them and execute it. So it's amazing when you make a change in a property, how quickly things can change. So that's the number one thing.
Right. Yeah. So Michael Weinberg says that he noticed your DOSs and senior sales manager are also OEM. That usually means original equipment manufacturer. Michael, if you could give us the context of that, that'd be great. Curious about the thinking on that. So let's wait to get the answer on that, unless you could go ahead and you know what he's talking about.
Sure. OEM is overtime exempt manager, and basically,
all right.
there are
I was
certain
gonna say,
rules.
Glenn, what did you just say, Glenn?
Well, that's what OEM stands for, at least colloquially.
or overtime eligible. So it goes both ways. But and he's speaking more to the overtime eligible piece, I'm sure. And there's certain rules that Aimbridge didn't create. They're created by the labor law in our country that states if folks don't manage a certain number of people, or if they're selling 100% of their time, that their hours need to be structured differently, and they need to be eligible for overtime. So that depends on the property and depends on how the person's position is set up. But we certainly do recognize and operate in those guidelines.
Yeah, and this is a really good time to make yourself very valuable. So you don't have to worry about the overtime. Just worry about getting promoted and you make a hell of a lot more money, because there's a lot of hotels in Aimbridge. And if you're quality people, you're going to the top, because you're not going to be able to fill the positions as fast as you guys are growing and the occupancies and average rates that are going to happen in the next 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, I'll tell you one observation. I was in a group of folks last week, and there was a young lady, I'll call her a millennial, who said, before COVID, I really thought I was stuck behind a lot of older management people that were never going to leave, and I wasn't going to get ahead. And during the pandemic, those people repurposed their life and found different balance and found different jobs. And now there's all this opportunity in the hospitality space. So you're right. There's a ton of new blood coming in, and those folks are hungry to grow.
Yeah, and I think that's a great, in 2008, I used to say, especially director of sales, and not to pick on director of sales, but the people that were, and general managers that were kind of, watering their carnation, I say, old school people that didn't even know about revenue management and didn't really, and looked at the younger generations as the problem people, they left because they weren't able to, they got used to picking up the phone and putting it in order for a long time, and they forgot what sales was about. So they left at the 2008, and a generation came in that really understood what sales was about and understood revenue management. I think the same thing's happening now. If you're thinking the way you thought about opening a Four Seasons 20 years ago to open that Four Seasons today the same way, or those 5-star properties the same way, you're going to be out of business.
Yeah, not to mention, everything was rushing online anyway, but with COVID, people really learned how to buy everything without leaving their living room. Even in the resorts, one of the things we saw is that even during the lockdown, when properties were closed, our resort website traffic was up 150%.
Wow.
Why? Because people were dreaming. They wanted to go out and see where they were going to go. And that's where a lot of the buy decisions more than ever. So you're right. It's the people that know how to manipulate that space that are going to be successful as we pull out of this.
And talking about buying online, there's nothing I'm looking at right now around me I haven't bought on Amazon.
All right. Well, let's not advertise for Jeff Bezos. I think he's got plenty of cash these days. But Rob, I'm real curious about then, how you're approaching helping people elevate their careers and stuff like that right now, because we've already established that's a great time to be in the business. Anthony and I have been driving that home. We speak to a lot of students and tell them there's no better time than now to be in hospitality. What's the process for somebody like? What's their career path and potential when working with Aimbridge?
Well, and that's where the beauty of our scale comes back, Glenn, because, in the old days when I grew up in this business, I had to move all over the world to get ahead. And when you take a town like Dallas, where our corporate office is, where my home base is, we have 60 hotels there.
Right.
So if somebody wants to grow, they can continue to grow their career without ever having to change their address. And that's the beauty of Aimbridge. And not only from a location standpoint, but also from a scale standpoint. Somebody can start in select service and then jump over into more of a full service property, and then drop back down to select service as a GM and then grow. So, our company really gives, through the scale, the ability for our talent to grow through the company without having some of the old school ways that were put on promotions.
Right. Also opens you up to a whole new group of potential employees because in the era that you're talking about, you really needed to have that global nomad type of person who doesn't mind moving around the world every couple of years, is unsettled. But here, somebody can raise their family from birth to getting out of high school, and theoretically doesn't have to move unless they choose to.
Theoretically, but it also, that's the greatest part about our business. I mean, it really did bring me all over the world. I lived in the Caribbean for 20 years. I lived all over because of this business. So I hope it doesn't become too stationary.
So what is this is a very important question that we've been talking about a lot this year, and it's really, really near and dear to our hearts. We're all about the same age, and we're all kind of came up, and we're all white. And one of the things that we haven't seen is we haven't seen a lot of minorities in the C-suite. We haven't seen a lot of minorities as general managers. We haven't seen a lot of females as general managers. You're seeing more. But where is Aimbridge in really looking for diversity in executive positions?
We recently appointed a senior vice president of diversity and inclusion with our company.
Awesome.
The hospitality space has been a little bit more diverse than I think other businesses traditionally, because
not in the C-suite, not in the general manager C-suites.
Not for GMs. Recently I had this data close.
80% of the hospitality industry is minorities, but not in the positions that we've been in.
No, I hear what you're saying. I mean, and we look at this. We look at the stats. I mean, 85% of our director of sales are female, and I would say you're right that the great percentage of our GMs are white. But we're really focused on that, and part of it starts with how you recruit to get into our industry, and making sure that we see growth. I mean, if housekeeping is making sure that we're watching them grow up through to become a housekeeping manager and beyond. I was at a hotel 2 weeks ago in Austin, and the housekeeping manager told me that every time she hires a room attendant, she promises them within 1 year, she's going to get them out of the room. And whether it's behind the front desk or in food and beverage. And to me, that's just an exciting prospect, because when you come in, you want to know that there's growth, and that you're not, just because you're great room attendant, you're not going to go anywhere else.
Yeah.
And that's been the place that people don't grow out of. And I'm glad to see that, because I think that the room attendants are not only the hardest workers, but they got the most to offer in a lot of ways. I mean, there's one housekeeper I remember in Disney World. Her name was Star. And she's my favorite employee I've ever met on the road. And I've traveled as much as most people. And she was a star, and she was a housekeeper. And I think now, I don't know exactly what her position is, and I don't know what happened during COVID, but she really worked her way up, and they allowed her to work her way up. And she was a superstar, and she had more knowledge of that hotel than general manager.
Yeah. I mean, one of our senior vice presidents in housekeeping came into Aimbridge as an assistant, or senior vice president of human resources, came into Aimbridge as an assistant housekeeping manager when we acquired a hotel. So, I mean, to me, that's the beauty of hospitality. You're going to go as hard as you want to work and as far as you can go. But I agree with you. Diversity is an area that we all need to be focused on.
And that, to me, is really something we try to talk about on the show. Is you can go as far as you want to go. There's two things you need to do. You need to work within a team, but you also need to speak up for yourself. You don't always want to raise your hand and say, look at me, look at me, look at me. That's not the way to get ahead. But letting people know that, you're doing what you're supposed to do and you're doing more. How do you do that? You do that by whatever the criteria is to win employee of the month, a quarter or whatever. Start doing those kind of things. Do a little more. And in this industry, you'll go a lot further.
And also letting people know where you want to be, where they want the next steps, getting a mentor to find out, if I want to be a GM, what do you think the next places I should be?
Right.
Yeah. You know what? I really love that story of giving people a path when they're in housekeeping. At the end of 1 year, you'll have the opportunity to move on. I bet that helps with retention a lot, because people have a goal instilled with them on that first day of work, so they know it's leading to something. Because the whole notion of just cleaning hotel rooms for the rest of your life could really take you away from feeling engaged in the process, I would say, Rob.
Yeah, I mean, some folks want to do that, Glenn. Some folks are content, but other folks, they want to know that there's a path out of it, and that there's a path elsewhere, and you got to create that career for them.
How are you dealing with folks that come up through housekeeping that might have second language, English as a second language issues? Do you guys put in any courses or give them any ability to get training so that they can speak English and communicate more effectively and therefore rev up their career some more?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, English as a second language is a plus, not a negative. I mean,
agreed. Hey, English is my only language, Rob.
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
Rob.
Yeah, it's if you speak 2 languages, you're bilingual. If you speak 3, you're trilingual, and if you speak 1, you're American.
Yep.
So it's something that has to change in our country, and we see it as a big plus. And we look for people that are bilingual. But certainly, if somebody is challenged with English as their first language, we do offer courses,
Awesome.
either individual or joint courses.
Wow. That's really helpful. I'm sure you've got some great success stories for people that were able to communicate better in English and therefore achieve success.
When I came up in this industry, I didn't speak English. I spoke Brooklynese, and they helped me speak English. I just know how to speak Brooklynese with the thems and the does and the dots.
Let me tell you, that's a much harder habit to change than going from Spanish to English.
Actually, if you want to start speaking slowly and really get a bit better vocabulary, go work at a 5-star hotel. Because these and that and those, you start getting those out of your language because they start looking at you because you start working for people that come, maybe from other countries that have a better grasp of the English language than you do, and you start learning that talking Brooklyn doesn't work.
I would say that you'll also wind up as a side effect with a European accent is my kind of
So Rob, at the end, we're going to give you a chance to talk a little bit more about Aimbridge, how we can find you and all that stuff. But I want to ask things that to me are fun because we talk about a lot of the same stuff, COVID and employees and average rates and stuff. But you can write 7 books, okay, about your experience. What would be the title of your book? If you were going to write a book tomorrow, what would be the title of it?
The book would be, every chapter would have a name because I've been through so many things. I don't what my book,
But I certainly could. On the spot, Rob, you have to come up with a name right now.
I think my short story would be The Things That Guests Do. And it would be a bestseller.
Yeah. The picture could just be on the cover of you shaking your head.
Well, the favorite things that guests do, let's talk about that for a second. I'll give you mine if you give me yours. And my favorite thing is I was at the Nickelodeon Hotel, and I was the vice president, and we're going out to dinner. Me and my family are down there. And the general manager, I said, all right, good night. I'm going to dinner. If you need me, call me, whatever. And all of a sudden, I see my food and beverage manager or director in a room. And 10 minutes prior, as I'm walking out of my room, my daughter looks at me and says, Dad, why is there a sign on the sprinkler that says don't hang a food hanger here? And she's like, who would do that? I said, well, there's a lot of silly people in the world, Nina. And she goes, nobody would do that. That's ridiculous. My food and beverage director was literally running to her room. And as I'm going to my car, I said, babe, see that waterfall coming from the second floor? Someone just hung their shirt on that sprinkler. She goes, how do you know that? And I said, Marcel, what happened? He goes, some idiot just
Happens every day, every weekend, especially when we have weddings.
Yeah. Speaking of that, Professor Suzanne backstage said, bride with a wedding dress for me from when she was working at a property. That's insane to make that kind of move, but I could see why people would do it at the same time because it looks so tempting.
So, Rob, what's your favorite dumb human trick?
Wow. I always one of my favorite stories is there was a celebrity that'll go on unnamed, and I was MOD, and I was walking the halls, and he was cursing at his door and could not get his key to work and was rather inebriated. And I came to help him, and he told me how bad the hotel was and couldn't believe the key didn't work. And I had to let him know that was a key from another hotel in another state.
Did you finally let Nick Nolte in?
What's that?
Did you finally let Nick Nolte in the room?
Yeah.
Come on, we all know it was Gary Busey.
I have a Nick Nolte story too.
I was thinking Gary Busey, but I couldn't think of his name. I literally was thinking Gary Busey, but I couldn't think of his name. I've actually had a Gary Busey incident. But all right, do you have any
I got
some human tricks? Glenn?
Speaking about that, I got a good stupid human trick. I just saw this the other day on one of the Facebook news groups about hospitality. They had a no smoking rule, of course, in the hotel. So somebody drilled a hole in the wall and put a giant tube into the wall, so they blow their smoke into the tube, and it would go into the wall of the hotel rather than into the room.
All right.
Great stupid human trick.
I have one more. Another famous person from a band, a very famous band. May talk about songs in the location that you guys are in, kind of beach songs. They may even have the name beach in their name of the band. And
oh boy.
and I've told this story on the show before, but I think it's worth sharing. Never ever use an iron with water in it from a prior guest, because it may be urine from a band member with the name beach in the name of the band. So somebody from the beach, not girls but boys, urinated in an iron, and a young lady screamed and yelled at me because she was late for a dinner and she ironed her blouse with urine.
I've heard similar stories about that exact same thing.
Exactly.
It's more fun to talk about this stuff, isn't it? than average rates.
That's really funny. Suzanne also says hockey players put shampoo in the lobby fountain and bubbles got absolutely everywhere. Oof. That's real rough, man. Guess do the darndest thing. Sounds like a good show for ABC on Sunday nights, if you ask me.
Let's do the darndest things. Oh God, I like that. Rob, could you imagine if you took housekeepers, bellman, doormen, right, and overnight managers, put them in a room, right? You get like 20 of them. You put them in a room and just say, start talking. You would laugh and cry for hours.
You would get, especially in resorts where there's alcohol involved.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Speaking of that, one guy was at the front desk of a hotel that I was in at a potted plant and did not understand it was not the men's room. So that was not a good situation for him.
Listen, my favorite all-time thing is to see young people driven on not a golf cart, but a luggage cart at 3:00 in the morning in Vegas. Almost every time I'm there, I see, oh, there goes another one.
Hey, Rob, in your experience, how often does that naked guy accidentally lock himself out of the room?
I've seen it happen twice. Fortunately, they weren't naked, but they were like tighty whitey sleepwalking.
And one was Glenn, and the other one was Anthony. Listen, I've done stupid things like that where I tried to put my room service tray out, and for some reason I might be in my underwear or maybe even naked by going to the shower.
And the door shuts.
And I've never had it shut on me, but I came so close to it. And then I said to myself, stupid, yes. I said, why don't you just put shorts on before you do that? And I'm like, that's a good idea. So I don't do that anymore, because a couple of times I almost wound up in the lobby in my underwear or even naked.
I always do the deadbolt move. So
yeah, the deadbolt trick is the key.
Yeah.
I'm at that
point. Anthony, you don't have to. Well, you don't have to go through the effort of putting on those shorts. It's a little too much. Work. So, Rob, let's try to bring it back to what you guys are doing.
Why? Let's talk about fun stuff.
All right. So, you got anything more fun that you want to talk about?
No, let's go. Go ahead.
All right. So, where do you see opportunity in the next year for Aimbridge and your full service luxury and resorts division?
Well, I think right now the opportunity is going to be, making sure that we get our existing properties back open and ready for business, and get our associates back to work. From a long-term growth perspective, I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity, as you mentioned earlier, with either hotels or companies that are, looking to merge, either to grow or to survive. And I think we'll see consolidation throughout our industry. We're really focused on transient properties and resort properties. If you look traditionally in the Caribbean, a lot of the Caribbean assets were branded by management, and very difficult to exit for owners. And
Right.
so the owners are now looking to be married to the brands, but have independent operators so that they can have a similar exit plan like investments do in the U.S. And we think that there's going to be a real explosive growth in Caribbean opportunities in the next 12 to 18 months.
That's excellent. Anthony, you look like you were going to say something.
I find that fascinating.
Yeah. So that's really great. But I always ask this question when I talk about islands and stuff like that. You're so interdependent on that airline component of it. How do you plan? How do you do all of that? Because all of a sudden, XYZ major airline could say, we're reducing flights, or we don't want to fly here anymore.
Yep. Well, or all of a sudden there's 300 more Airbnbs taking up air seats that are needed to fill the hotels. One of the things, I spent several years in Aruba early on in my career, and one of the great things they have to their model is out of their, call it 16,000 keys on the island, about half of it's timeshare. So it sort of guarantees the airlines a base of traffic so that you don't lose those air seats during critical time periods. You've also got a partner. You can't just wait for the airlines to come in. You got to make sure that you're actively partnering with the airlines to create incentives to open new markets and new direct routes, because the people will go where they can find a direct flight. It's very rare. People don't like to connect on vacation.
Right.
So, but yeah, I think one of the bigger threats that people don't talk about is Airbnb and VRBO and things like that, where they're going to lose air seats into some of these smaller island destinations that are critical to fill the guest rooms.
So what are some of the local governments doing or not doing about that potential issue for you folks who are investing lots and lots and lots of money into these locations?
Well, the first thing they're doing is paying attention. I mean, it's easy to see if you've got 10,000 rooms to fill, that you're going to need, 45,000 seats a week to be able to run 70% occupancy or whatever the math is. So they have to constantly do the math to make sure that there's enough air seats for the hotels to run. And you also have to work with the hotels to make sure that the pricing is such that packaging can make it a competitive destination. But lastly, making sure that you're working with the airlines so that you're providing incentives to make sure that you're keeping airlines coming in so that you have enough people to stay in the hotel rooms.
Right. Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense to me. It's gonna be interesting to see how that all works out, because those particular companies have really been advertising extremely hard online all the time. I can't avoid it, Rob. And one of the concerns I have is I'm not seeing the same type of effort from all of the major hotel brands on there. So I'm scared that people are going to be seeing all these ads, and they're going to start to flock more and more to that. And the hotel industry is taking too much of a we've been damaged, we're sitting back, we're not being aggressive type of position. Are you able to do anything to try to get them to do more advertising?
I can tell you that conversation's happening right now, and it was really something that was brought up by the brands, not by us as operators. Yeah, they realize that to be a competitive brand, you need to bring in 30 to 40% of the business direct, and for every hotel room that goes out to an OTA, that cuts into the brand's direct participation in the hotel. So. I think that, just competitiveness in itself, because there are so many flag options and because it's something that we're looking at as operators, we go back to the brands and say, I need to show me what you produced for us last month, because it's a cost of delivery. And we need to look at that as hard as we look at the cost of an OTA delivered room.
Yeah, and I think that's really been accelerated because of the pandemic, especially with executives, not coming back to their jobs. I think that's going to be in the next 12 to 24 months is going to be something really important. But because as they build their marketing plan and they're realizing that they have to have more marketing dollars, that's going to hit the hotelier in the pocketbook. Because if they're going to come out and say, hey, we've really got to tackle this and we've really got to get our name out there more and you're helping the brand, well, guess what? You're going to get a check at the end of the month to supplement that advertising because they're not, they don't have the money.
Yeah, well, I would say, Anthony, it all comes back to cost of distribution. If you're going to ask me for more money, show me how that's going to ROI in guests that come back into our properties. It's what it's all going to be about, and that's what owners are going to look at. I don't think owners or operators such as Aimbridge mind being asked for marketing dollars. We just want to make sure that when we do spend that money, that we see how it comes back to us.
Yeah, but unfortunately, and you know this better than anyone, the last 5 or 10 years, that's been the number one concern of ownership. It's like we're not getting the return on our investment. We're spending for third parties. You're saying backyard sales. You're saying you need to have a good sales force, and we're contributing through our programs. But you need to continue to have a great sales force. But we also need marketing dollars. But you're still also putting third party, heads in beds. And it's been, again, better than anyone, it's been the biggest problem in our industry for the last, I wouldn't even say 10 years. I would say the last 20 years. And it's not getting any better. It's getting worse.
It's a problem if you don't operate the hotel and sell the hotel properly. You need to really look at your mix of sales and make sure that your brand is giving you the contribution and make sure that your property is producing what they need to produce. It's all about looking at all your areas of distribution. But I agree with you that I think you're going to see the shift. Like I said, the conversation has already started. And the difference between an OTA, they don't have brick or mortar and they have limited staffs and they spend 40 to 50% of their income on marketing. Right. So it's a smart model on their behalf. And I think the brands are starting to understand that model.
I got an important question. I've wanted to ask someone in your position for a long time. And I always forget to ask this question. How important, when you're hiring a general manager, how important is it for them to understand revenue management?
In today's world, it's hugely important. Our general managers sit in on all the revenue management meetings. They have the ultimate vote when it comes to those decisions. And it's hugely important that they not only understand revenue management, but e-marketing. We put our GMs through a class to teach them how e-marketing works, what they should look for in their website production, what their look to book ratio should be, what the images on their website should look like, and that's I think an area, people spend 1% of their time, and that's where 45% of their business comes from, is understanding as a general manager how you're being showcased and sold online.
So if you're listening to this and you want to be in the hotel business, and I don't care if you want to be a general manager or not, if you don't know revenue management and e-marketing, that's going to hold you back. I mean, because even in food and beverage, I want people to understand that. Even if you're running housekeeping, I want you to understand how we generate money. Because if you generate money, the owners are happy, and we can promote people, and we can do great things. If we don't know how to generate money, and all we knew how to do is, save expenses, we're not going to have a fun time. And
you can't manage yourself to prosperity by cost cutting. It's all about creating top
people
line.
Finally starting to realize that. But the most important thing, and no one talks about it, never on this show that we talk about, we should talk about it more, is really understanding if you're going to be in this business, we should probably have revenue managers and E managers on the show and talk about that, because it is critical. That's how everybody books. And if you're not booking that way, guess what? 90% of the people are looking that way.
Well, and it's easy to see when you're at my level, because I can look at a mix of sales, and if the direct production is not where it needs to be, that's the first place we look.
Right.
It's also about rational pricing when it comes down to revenue management, making sure that you're not you're not selling the lowest segment of your market too cheap and your highest segment too expensive.
An educated general manager in those two areas could stop a lot of wars between sales and groups and front office in meetings by understanding what everybody's talking about and being able to come to the table with the best decision, because he understands everybody's perspective. If you don't understand it and you don't understand people's perspectives and you don't understand how it works, you go to hide, your team starts hiding group business from you and put it out of inventory rooms, and then you're screwed.
Yeah, Anthony, I got a couple openings I'd like to talk to you about.
Hey, you know what? You know what? People ask me all the time, what do you miss most? Because I get all the time. It's like, hey, when you starting your show again? I say, hey, man, 10 years, I'm good. I'm doing other things. And now I'm getting to the point where you give me the right hotel in the right location, and you got yourself an overqualified or an underqualified general manager.
So I don't know why her name's not popping up here, but I checked on my LinkedIn feed. Casey Mitchell says it's a huge delta in understanding and strategy for too many hotels. She does revenue management. She gets it. Rob, this could be a great competitive advantage for you that I'm sure you're taking advantage of. Smart revenue strategy can help you beat all of your competitors.
But Rob, can I jump in? I don't usually.
Oh my goodness.
I don't usually cut off my. I try not to cut people off, but I got to answer this question. It is not a competitive advantage. If you're breathing, Glenn, is that a competitive advantage to the person next to you?
Well, if somebody is not breathing,
yes,
I get to stay alive.
But if you're all breathing, you breathing is not a competitive advantage. So understanding revenue management and e-marketing isn't a competitive advantage. If you don't know it, you're not going to be in this business.
Right. Hey, Susan, I agree.
I'm sorry, Rob. I
That question.
No,
you're absolutely right, though, Anthony.
You're 100% right. And, through COVID, it was more about, distribution and making sure you're open. Now we're getting back into, yielding rates and making sure that, that we're back to old school revenue management. And that's a great conversation. I mean, we've been excited and waiting for that conversation. So.
Yeah, all right, we're reaching the top of the hour, but I don't want to. Susan also made this great point. When sales is down, one of the first things some owners do is cut revenue management, revenue strategy. It's crazy. I see people making cuts in the wrong places all the time, Rob. How do you keep people from making those stupid decisions?
Aimbridge is a top line company. So when things are down, we don't cut the revenue manager and we don't cut the salespeople. One of the things that we saw through the pandemic is salespeople were checking people in and cleaning rooms. And we don't want to do that either. I mean, that's a defeatist approach. So you won't see that in an Aimbridge property. We invest in our top line revenues, and that's the core of our business.
And that's Rob's job as a seasoned professional, to be able to speak to owners and make them understand that in a very calm, non-emotional way. Because when I see things like that happening, I have to go in the corner and take a breath and say, okay, let me do this in a calm, professional way. But what I really want to say is, can you go sit over there and I'll send you the check? But you have to be able to use your experience and how to handle that. And that's why Rob's in that position.
And Anthony, data, the one thing
100%.
That's great about having 1,500 hotels, we've got data. So we can go out and show, these hotels don't have a director of sales. This is where they are in market share compared to these hotels that didn't cut their salespeople during the pandemic. So data speaks for itself.
Right, and you used to run the Aruba Convention Center, or what was your job?
I ran the Aruba. I was the CEO of the Aruba Hotel and Tourism Association and the Convention Bureau.
Right. So having you in the position that you're in now, I mean, that's a qualification that most people in your position don't have. And that really gives you a world view. And I don't mean a world view because it was a different country, but because it's a world review, because you understand the airlines, you understand the hotels, you understand the third parties, you understand all of it. You understand how guests travel. And that is a crazy good experience to have in your position.
Thank you. Yeah. Also the destination marketing piece is huge because so many countries, they'll cut that out of their budget or use it for other things, and they don't see that comes right back to their coffers in room tax.
Yeah, by chance, it wasn't Carla Cacavalli?
I know who?
Carla Cacavalli. She used to be PR down there.
No, I don't. I don't know.
I do. All right, Rob. We've got to wrap this up because you've got an actual job to go do instead of talking to us here all day. Now, the perfect opportunity to do what Anthony promised you. Chance for Aimbridge, shameless plugs, anything you want to say, all of that kind of good stuff.
Well, a lot of people don't know Aimbridge because we don't put our names on the side of the building. We're the largest third-party manager. We're the largest franchise operator of all the major brands. I've been with the company for 10 years, and it's a great place to grow your career. And we really operate it like a big family, not like a big company. And one of the things that we do, because oftentimes people, when I was growing up in Aimbridge, at first they said we were too small, and then our competitors said we were growing too fast, and now they say we're too large. But we run our company in verticals, and we make sure that we have the vertical expertise. And my vertical expertise is resorts, full service, and luxury. And that way, it kind of makes the company smaller. It allows us to be specialized in the properties that we're running. It also allows, as an owner, I'm not going to put a select service guy over a resort, and it gives us that bandwidth. So, love the business and love our company. So appreciate the opportunity having you guys having me on today. It was a lot funner than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, well, I got to tell you, I really enjoyed talking with you too, Rob. Let's plan one of these days to do something live from one of your properties.
Sounds great. Love to have you.
And Rob, I just put my cell number in the comment box, so send me your cell, text me.
You got it.
I want to talk to you about a few things.
But Rob, make sure you do it in the private chat box, not the regular comment box, and everyone will get your.
I'm sorry, Glenn. I misspoke. I apologize. Please don't fire me.
That will never happen. We're going to double down. We've just extended Anthony's contract here on No Vacancy Live, so look forward to that. Rob, thank you so much for being here. Enjoy that beautiful day in St. Thomas.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you, sir.
Be good. All right. So I do want to say Colleen's got a very big situation. She says, "Oh my, I lost my top fan status. Hope I didn't ruffle any feathers." Colleen, I have no idea what that's about. That sounds to me like Mark Zuckerberg is doing that to you, and has nothing to do with anything that Anthony might have done.
Hey, I have over 100,000 followers, and I still don't have my check mark. So I don't know why. It's ridiculous. But anyway, first of all, I just want to say, Rob Smith's got a very creative name. I'll never remember the name. But just what a fantastic guy, and what a fantastic career. And I wouldn't want anybody else in that position if I owned Aimbridge. Just learned a lot, and he has such tremendous experience, and you can tell that he's the calm in a storm.
Yeah, absolutely right. Literally, being that they were dealing with a hurricane down there a few years ago. So, all right, tomorrow, guys, we've got a very, very special show coming up for you.
You're not going to be on it.
Well, we'll be on it.
Oh.
I don't know how much I don't know how much influence we'll have over it tomorrow. So we're going to see about that. But Colleen, we do love you, and I think you'll enjoy what's going on tomorrow as well, which is why I reached out to you on the Facebook over there. Anthony, any final thoughts before we wrap up today, sir?
Yes. I love you.
Aw, I love you too. I actually have a final thought that doesn't discuss our absolutely love and affection for each other. But Inc. magazine had an article out that I read this morning, Inc. magazine, that says bosses are trying to gaslight employees into believing they miss the office. It's not working. Enraged employees are having none of managers' attempt to herd them back to their cubicles. A lot of people are saying out there. So it's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out with tradition.
I look at it this way, and it depends on my business. If I have a business that needs you in the office, you're going to be in the office.
Yeah.
If I have a business that I can be flexible, that I can give you everything you want, I'm going to do it. But if I need you in the office, I need you in the office. And if you're not going to come in the office, I'm going to get somebody that can. With the attitude of, I don't want you in the office. I want you to have flexibility. I want you to have fun. I don't want you to have to come into a cubicle. But if I need you there, you're coming in.
Right. Yep.
Or you don't work there.
Yeah. Makes sense. Makes sense to me. Listen.
And don't send me hate mail, everyone, please. Thank you.
No, he won't be able to read it anyway. He's got so much to go through.
That's a hit too. I don't read my emails.
Yes, that's true. That's why we text you. All right, Anthony, thank you so much. What a great show this is today. Oh my God. Yes, Colleen, it's always a pleasure when you tune in. Thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate all of you guys for being here. Now, before I go, I'd be remiss if I didn't remind you, tomorrow's going to be a really great show before we go off into the weekend. We got a Friday night audit coming up at 5 for a little bit of fun before we head into Memorial Day. Next Tuesday, we got we're taking off Monday because it's the holiday. But Tuesday, I just had a great call with the guys over at the TSA, Anthony. I'm really excited.
I'm looking forward to that.
Tuesday. It's going to be super interesting, fascinating conversation. You all have to be here for that one. And of course, If you want to download the audio version of our show, you can find it on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio. You can get it on Stitcher, wherever you prefer to get your audio versions of the show. And of course, you want to connect with Anthony and myself on social media. Find him at Anthony Hotels. And of course, I am at Traveling Glenn. Man,
can I talk about that graphic for a second?
Yeah,
I talked about it in the beginning, but I'm going to talk about it again because it's important.
All right. Yep.
Suzanne had one of her students help us with the graphic.
Mm-hmm.
And the more graphics were sent to me, I didn't like them. And probably we went through, Suzanne, how many graphics would you say we went through before we got to this graphic? 12? How many? She can come on. How many? 12? How many
probably
graphics?
at least 12. And
Right.
Jane,
and how did you feel every time I said, thank you, but I don't like it? Thank you, I don't like it. How'd you feel? Honestly, be honest.
I knew that your elevated level of expectation, I had to keep raising the bar. And then I questioned myself by saying, why did I volunteer to do something?
That's what you were saying to yourself, because I kept
looking at it. And
because you kept on volunteering. I even said, forget about it. We're going to do it ourselves. And I kept on driving. And I want to bring that point up for a number of reasons. 2 reasons. One, if you have really quality people working around you that expect high standards for themselves, then they're not going to give up. And they're going to just say, they're not going to take what I'm saying as a defeatist attitude and say, oh, he's just out of his mind. They're going to keep at it. And number 2, as a person that will not lower a standard, don't lower your standards. And then what happened? Put that graphic back up. We got to a graphic that is fantastic, and something every time I look at brings a smile on my face. It makes me happy. But that was the standard. Now, whether other people like it or don't like it, listen, half the people may like it, half the people won't. But when I look at it, it gives me pride that's who we are. And that's, so I just wanted to say that, because so many people, like what I'm hearing right now from everyone is, I just need people. I just need people. I just need people. Yes, you will. And you do need people, but when you lower your standards, you get what you get.
Well, thanks to Jane Huang. She was our commencement speaker at Boston University for helping to make that happen with me.
Right. Thank you very much, Jane. So just a little life lesson there. Don't give up on your standards.
That's right. So, do you have anything else that you want to add?
Yeah, I've given up on my standards a little bit when I decide. No, I'm not going to say that joke, Glenn. Said it too many times.
Listen, I have no standards, which is why I got you to join us on the show.
Listen. When people say, who's this guy, Glenn? I was like, listen, I know things, and Glenn is going to make this a great show, and you have. And anyway,
so and you make this a great show. Dude, it is so much fun doing this show with you every day, especially today. A little behind the scenes news. I'm just off my game today. I just did not have it. So thank you so much for picking up all the slack and making that interview awesome.
You know what, Glenn? Just thank me every day for doing that.
I do, but I send it to your email.
Yeah, and just so people know how much preparation goes into the show. Rob Smith was in the green room. We were talking to him, and I said, who's Rob Smith and what are we talking about? So the reason this show works, and I mean this sincerely, great guests talk to people that know how to ask good questions. Mm-hmm. And, and we go all over the board sometimes. I thought some of the questions were a little boring and we're going down the same thing. So I ask questions about, what's your favorite thing to eat on a plane? And it just makes the show better. It goes faster for me because, listen, if I'm bored, then I know the audience is bored. Mm-hmm. And Rob was great. You were great. And that's, that's why the show's so great. It's like, you don't worry about analyzing it and overanalyzing it because it'll become a boring show.
Yeah, and while we're at it, speaking about not having boring shows, not only do we have Dan McCoy, the Chief Innovation Officer at the TSA next week, but we have the VP of Development for the Caribbean for Hilton coming up next week. We've got their Chief Investment Officer of Island Hospitality coming up next week. Then we got a little bit later on, we've got another great president of a management company. Harris Rosen is coming back in a couple of weeks. One of the best interviews we've ever done on the show. Chief Commercial Officer for Siness is coming on the show. We've got Paleo Society that's coming on the show. And then, of course, we got a week in Vegas. Your friend Manny Rappanecker is coming back. We got the CEO of HB Hotels coming on. And, of course, we've got Chris Green coming back from time to time as well. What a great lineup we have in the next month.
Chris Green's worth the price of admission.
Yep. All right, Anthony, let's get out of here. I know you've got a meeting to go to, and I've got to keep my fingers crossed that the weekend will get here soon. This is the world's longest week for me, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. Remember, Make the best of what you got because you've only got one life. So blaze on, and
Be kind to yourself.
see y'all not next week. See you tomorrow.